Evening, everyone, and welcome to the April 8th meeting of the Lakeville Conservation Commission. We are being recorded by LakeCAM. I'd like to ask if anyone else in the audience is recording. Seeing none, we will begin by introducing ourselves.
I'm Mark Minton. I'm the conservation agent.
John LeBlanc.
Michelle Bouchard.
Nancy Yates.
Joseph Chamberlain.
William Morfiles.
Good, I'm glad that you say it rather than we have to introduce you. We're not used to saying your name yet. You are, we welcome you. You're our newest member. I don't think we've been here since he's been officially on the board, so
No,
welcome.
I haven't, no. Thank you.
And thank you
Thank you.
for volunteering. Okay, first up is 14 Sandy Point Road, and it was not noticed in the paper. I guess it was sent in and it didn't get published, so I will look for a motion to continue 14 Sandy Point Road to April 22nd at 6:30 p.m. at the Lakeville Police Station.
Well, we're not So opening moved. it, not opening it, right? We don't, we can't open it.
Right,
Okay.
we're just continuing it.
So again, to your point, the applicant did submit it all to paper. It just didn't run, so I just.
Okay, all right, so we have a motion and a second.
We'll just need to let them know that we're moving it.
Yep,
I'll reach out.
to the 22nd. Okay, thank you. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, next up, Clark Shores. So I need a, to read the ad from the paper, first thing. Yep, no, you can pass it out and then I will, while you pass it out, I'll read.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 131, the Wetlands Protection Act, the Lake Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on 4/8/2025 at 6:30 p.m. at the Lakeville Police Station, 323 Bedford Street, on a request for determination of applicability. The applicant, Southeast Regional Planning and Economic Development District, is proposing 11 borings and installation of 4 groundwater monitoring wells to assess nitrogen concentrations. The project is located along Central Avenue, Hollis Avenue, Marigold Lane, and Shore Avenue. More?
There's even a fifth, but I don't know if you, I guess that one doesn't have to go around to everybody.
What's
right?
that?
The signature.
No, I do. I'll just give this to you guys.
Okay.
I think that was emailed this one.
Oh, site access form. Okay, that's good. That's for the file. Thank you.
So I'm Karen Pettinelli, environmental.
Nope, I'm sorry.
Oh.
You have to sit at the microphone before you start talking. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I have to be on my best LakeCAM behavior.
I'll do my best. No foul language, no, yeah.
Does that go for me too?
Yes.
Hey, you're in front of the mic also.
All right.
Okay. So you both have to introduce yourselves and then you can start.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm Karen Pettinelli, I'm an environmental planner at Serped.
Eric Axelrod, I'm with Fuss and O'Neill.
And we've contracted Fuss and O'Neill to do a feasibility study for a permeable reactive barrier, which is, for short, we call it a PRB, and it's a fancy name for a passive remediation technology that absorbs nitrogen underground. You essentially install either wood chips or vegetable oil or another organic matter underneath the surface, and it prevents nitrogen from groundwater from getting into the surface water body, being Long Pond in this situation. And we're doing this as part of a 12-point program that we developed in 2022 for the Assawampset Pond Complex, and that's this this page here shows all the different points on this plan. We had Horsley Witten do a assessment of the whole watershed to see what the most effective mechanisms would be to improve water quality in the watershed. And the permeable reactive barrier, it's number 6 there, is one of the things to do to improve water quality on Long Pond specifically. And they identified the western side of Long Pond as being the area that would be best to put a PRB in because of how groundwater is moving. And they also identified Clark Shores as the best spot because of the number of residential units there and indicating there would be high levels of nitrogen. So we're proposing doing a feasibility study at Clark Shores to see if a PRB would work there, would be a good technology to put in Clark Shores. And there's a lot of different factors that go into that, including like direction of groundwater and nitrogen concentrations and how it's moving underground. And in this study, we have until the end of June. We have state allocated funds for it that the Division of Ecological Restoration is kind of, they're the ones funneling the funds and overseeing the project. And we just met with Clark Shores on Sunday and they approved our project, our feasibility study, which is exciting. And I'll let Eric talk more about the details of that project. But I don't know if people had questions on the first part of that around the water quality measures using a PRB to improve water quality through nitrogen. And it can be used for other nutrients also, but essentially it's placed in the ground near the edge of a surface water body, and it pulls like 90% of the nitrogen from the groundwater out of the groundwater before it enters the pond. So this could be very effective on as a larger scale, and this is just a feasibility study for a pilot installation. So, we would get some groundwater if we did this stage, and then if in a future stage we actually put a PRB in. But ideally, maybe this could be, a trend in the future.
The,
Tons of questions about the
the,
PRB, but
I know I went through that pretty
we're not
fast.
there yet, so.
the original grant, it was a vulnerability grant, MVP, Municipal Vulnerability Grant, was a regional grant, through to the state regionally, but through the APC. And so I've been involved in this for a long time, and it's like finally coming to pass, because in the past, it's crazy. Over the last 20 to 30 years, there've been studies and studies, and people always complaining there's another study, another study. This time, I have to say thanks to Senator Roderick's, really, that we're getting the money every year to follow some of the things that they're suggesting we need to do. It's actually like happening. So this is pretty exciting to me, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems to be no longer just a plan. It's like there's actual
It's like
action. Yeah, action. Yeah.
It's exciting.
Very exciting.
Yeah.
So maybe people have questions on PRBs and we wouldn't be installing a PRB. This is just collecting data to see if it would make sense to do a pilot here at Clark Shores.
Right, design that pilot.
Yeah. And then, I don't know, or do you want to describe the study or?
Yeah, I can jump into it unless, did you want to?
I just have questions about PRBs in general and long-term maintenance, that kind of thing.
Okay. You want to, we can tackle that now. Yep.
Let's go over this first
Okay,
because,
and then go into the other, okay. So as Karen said, we're at a point now where we're looking to assess where best to import a pilot study, right? So the pilot study, we're looking at a stretch of about 200 to 400 feet. To put it into context, the length of the full investigation that you see where the borings is about 4,000 feet in length, right? So a portion of it. So what we plan on doing now is each of those points, there's 11 points on the plan. We're going to access each of those points. They're all along roadways, so it's developed, disturbed areas. At this point, we have it's a direct push geoprobe unit. There's a picture that we sent you as well. It's a small diameter boring, maybe an inch and a half wide. They put that down. At the bottom of that is a little screen with a tube up to the top. We take a sample of groundwater. We test that water for multi-parameters. We're looking at pH, temperature, oxidation reduction potential, ammonia, nitrate, sulfate. I think that's it. I may be missing one or two. Dissolved oxygen too. So what we're looking for primarily as first pass is where along this 4,000 foot length are the highest concentrations of nitrate, right? Where do we get our best bang for the buck when we're putting in this pilot system, right? And so once we do that, we put our 11 points, we take We're taking samples at multiple depths of within the groundwater aquifer as well. You know, let's say groundwater, just for discussion purposes, is at 5 feet. We'll take a sample probably like 10 feet, 20 feet, 30 feet, if we can get that deep. This way, not only are we assessing groundwater concentrations and geochemical parameters in a linear horizontal fashion, but we're also looking at it vertically, because that's going to come into factor of types and depths of these PRB walls that we're going to put in. So we do that. Most of the data we're going to collect in the field. We have field instrumentation that we can collect. We're going to send some to laboratory to get confirmatory results, make sure our field our field instrument is precise enough for us. Then we use that data to select our area, that 200 to 400 foot length. And then what we do as part of this study is we're going to go back and put in 4 groundwater monitoring wells that are going to be permanent. So it's the same drill equipment that we use. They just switch out what gear they're using down in the ground. They open up, you know, a 3-inch diameter hole. We put a 2-inch diameter PVC pipe down in the ground, put some sandpack around where the well screen is, seal it at the surface. It's a flush mount cap, almost like a Watergate kind of thing, right? Where we can go in, unbolt it, access the well. And now what we're doing, and the intent of this is to place those wells to up gradient, to down gradient of where we selected that 200 to 400 foot length. So we can get background concentrations. And then once it's installed, we can see what the impacts, what the effects are. Like, are we removing and to what degree are we removing the nitrogen? And then all of that, this pilot study gives us a sense then of taking then a design and moving it into a full scale. I mean, that's the ultimate goal, is to install a full scale system along, whether it's this full length or not, but certainly it would be a longer than the 200 to 400 foot length. So that's the idea.
And I think the study, it was the SNEP study that said it would go 1,500 feet, a 1,500 foot PRB would be the
Correct.
recommended amount for the western side of Long Pond. And so this 200 to 400 foot one would be, right, a pilot for
Pilot, yep.
that future phase.
Right, and all the information we get from the pilot is then used to hone our design for the bigger picture.
Do you already think that the PRB is the solution, or is this going to determine that?
Well, I think we're at this point thinking that yes, it is going to be a solution, but we don't want to jump into full scale until we kind of prove that,
Yep.
right?
Understood.
It's the right technique for what we're trying to do, right?
Yeah, and I kind of rushed through some of that PRB stuff, sorry. But they're relatively new and very popular, like across the country, because, nutrients and water bodies is such a problem everywhere. And so they're being installed a lot on Long Island and the Cape. And that's where It's like a lot of the work is being done really is on the Cape right now. And there haven't been a ton in Southeast Mass yet, but like it's essentially, it's understood as an effective strategy for removing nutrients from water bodies.
Right.
I think one of John's main things, because he's voiced it already, is maintenance.
Right.
And I really couldn't answer. He asked me and I couldn't answer the question.
There really is no maintenance.
Okay.
No. So as Karen indicated, there's sort of two approaches that we would look at, and some of it depends on depth, how deep we need to go, and it comes to a lot of a cost benefit analysis, right? So you're basically installing organic matter to drive the bacteria up. That's really what's breaking down.
So that
nitrogen,
organic
right?
matter never needs to be replaced?
So there's two paths. So there's the wood chips, right? Type, or there's injection of liquid emulsified vegetable oil, right?
Okay.
So what our studies have shown, where we've used these techniques and others, is that these PRBs will last 4 to 7 years.
Oh,
So to your point,
10.
What's it?
I heard 6 to 8. Well, I heard 6 to 8 for the oil and then 10 for the wood chips.
Yeah, so, all right, okay, sorry. So
I've heard more optimistic
So,
numbers.
so
Yeah.
my question always is, going forward,
Yeah. So-
in 10 years, when it needs to be,
So going to, there may be a need to
Who
do
does
it,
that?
or there's other options that will come into play at that point of
okay,
what needs to be done.
I'm just looking for a maintenance manual.
Yeah,
You know?
I mean-
I
And who's
mean, once
gonna be
it's in the ground, there's
responsible for
like nothing you need to do. You don't
Yeah.
need to go tweak anything or twist anything or adjust anything. It's in the ground, it's in the ground.
I guess there would just be monitoring of those wells
Correct.
after the PRB is installed. There'd be
Correct.
monitoring wells also, like
Mhm.
up gradient and down gradient, and you would check to make sure it's still effective. And at a certain point,
So who's paying for all this? Serpent?
the state,
The state is,
yeah,
okay,
it's through Serpent, and yeah, so far.
Follow-up money from the grant
yeah.
that we've been getting.
I just get
Yeah.
concerned with, you know, doing something like this and then time comes to deal with it, you know, some issue with it or anything like that. Now it falls on the town and, you know, and we haven't budgeted anything for it. So I like to know if there's gonna be some future cost to the town.
There's no like downside to having it in the ground.
Yeah.
It would just lose effectiveness over time. So it's like if you wanted to re-up
Well,
the,
but even that's an issue, right?
for the pond, it's an issue, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the oil, it's easier because you can re-inject pretty
Yes.
easily.
Yeah, the oil is certainly an easier approach. Right, because you can come back and stick things in the ground and inject it some more
Right, right.
versus having to dig another trench.
I'm in favor of cleaning up the lake,
Yeah.
obviously, but,
Well, another part, I don't even know if it's on this one, is we can't do anything about our undersized culvert by Tamarack Park, which is also one of the next steps along here that we've been actually working with Representative Auchincloss on, because that would be really expensive. But we can't do that like Taunton, not so much in Bedford, but Taunton doesn't want us opening up that culvert if dirty water is gonna come out of Long Pond and go into drinking water. So this is a step of getting that to happen, because our municipal vulnerability is flooding.
mhm.
And to alleviate that kind of flooding that we had in 2010, these are some of the solutions, and we can't just, that big one is that culvert at Tamarack Park, but we've already done some engineering on that, so all this stuff is happening, but it's not gonna happen unless we can prove, and there
Yeah,
are
no,
two
I'm
water
all-
studies going on, correct? Right now,
I'm all for this.
okay.
As far as the culvert goes, I mean, it's all downstream. Asphalt department's downstream for Long Pond, so it's bigger or not, that water's still gonna go that way, whatever's in the water.
Right, it does, but a lot more of it will go if they replace that undersized culvert. And at this time, it's, 10 days, you can correct me, but I've been saying 10 days for years, but after a major storm event, it takes, Long Pond's flooded, and it takes 10 days for the ponds to level out. So that culvert would decrease that to, I think one of the figures they had thrown out was like 4 days instead of 10 with replacing that culvert. But that's all in the future. So for tonight, does anybody else?
Yeah, I have,
Okay, good.
2 questions.
Okay.
I'm a little familiar with these. How would you choose the injectable liquid form versus the mulch? Would the pilot be part of that determination, or?
Yeah, so it's really gonna come down to what's the more efficient means of achieving our goals, right? So when I say that, it's, let's say we go out there and water is 5 feet deep, 4 feet deep in certain part that we decide where we're gonna put it. And the higher impacts are shallow too. That would probably lean us towards the trench method, right? Because we can control that a little bit more. If we find that water or the impacted water is deeper, then we'll probably lean more towards the EVO. But, so that's it in a kind of a 10,000 foot level. The other variables are probably going to be what other geochemical parameters, pH, dissolved oxygen, all that we find, and is one type of media better in that environment than another type of media. So,
Well, you can drill a test pit in one place in this town and hit 5 different water tables before
Right.
you even hit 30 feet.
right.
So,
Right.
And 4 different soil types.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Right. So, yeah, and you know, obviously one of our goals of doing all of our points is understanding where groundwater is throughout this
Everywhere.
stretch. Yeah.
My related question is, what does, let's say that we can't go the injectable route, which for a lot of reasons is preferred. What does the disruption look like to actually trench and get mulch in there?
Just like what you would expect. Yeah, we'd go down, we'd probably still keep it within the roadway. We'd open up a trench and the width of that trench would vary to a degree on what we're seeing so what we're also going to do with our monitoring wells is we're going to assess depth of groundwater. We're going to get the gradient of the water, like how steep is that table, and also we're going to do rising or falling head tests to get the hydraulic conductivity so we can get the flow rate of the water. So if the water's moving slowly, we can probably go with a narrower trench. So we still get the contact time. If water's moving quickly, then we'll have to go a little wider in order to make sure we get the right contact time through that. So excavator, open up the trench. We'll probably need to use, in order to keep walls from caving in, we'll probably use some form of trench box to open it up, backfill it. It's a mixture of wood chips and sand material as well. Backfill that to our thickness or width that we are in the design. Put cover back on, finish it to grade. We walk away, and in theory, it'll look just like it did before we were there.
Are there any long-term problems with, as that organic matter degrades, it's done its job in, we'll be optimistic, 8-10 years,
Yeah.
right? And all of, the nitrogen's been eaten, that bacteria, everything works its way to the surface the way that we want this basically biomechanical process to work for us. Is there any concern about the roadway then basically caving into this void that you created?
Yeah. So I think there would be a natural decay of the wood chips, right? But it will be in an anaerobic environment, so I wouldn't suspect that it would break down that quickly. And to counter that too, we that's one of the reasons we add the sand is to provide stability to it. The other is to provide keep the transmissivity of the material so the water can continue to flow through that.
Make sure it's going that way and not every other way.
Yeah, not getting we don't want the wood chips to create a dam, so to speak, right? So you're stopping it and then it's kind of going around. So we add that sand too. And I think from a structural standpoint, we can probably look at how do we amend that material to make sure that it stays stable and doesn't sink down.
And there's also like columns are often used as well. It's not always a trench, so it could be like a series of columns, which wouldn't be the same kind of like structural, like system next to the road. It would be more, broken apart and then wouldn't have that concern.
Right. That's right. Yeah. So that's sort of like what they would come is with a wide auger, bore down, pull out the material, create a hole, and same thing, backfill it, pack it. And for that kind of design, the borings would be stepped. So sort of that kind of thing. So as the water passes through, it's not hitting holes, right, so to speak.
And also this is for the feasibility study, or this RDA is for the work just of doing these borings and the monitoring wells.
Right.
And of course, like we're hoping this all goes well and they think it's a good spot for a PRB, and we hope we'll come back to you next year with another round of funding to do this part. But at this point, it's there's minimal impacts on
understood.
But,
we just want to make sure we know the full potential
Yeah.
scale of what it could look like. So thank you. That was helpful.
Anybody else?
Question.
Mark? Oh, Joe?
You mentioned pH. How important is pH level to the water quality?
It's important from a fact. I mean, the bacteria themselves, right, can live within a pretty wide range,
Yeah.
right? But but you don't want to go too much to extreme. We don't think that that's going to be an issue, but we still want to understand what the pH is, because that'll dictate to some degree, right, how the bacteria.
Do you have past information on on pH levels in our ponds? Reason I ask
I
is
don't
from
have
20,
that.
25 years ago,
Yeah.
there was a study,
Yeah.
long-range study out of, I believe, UMass Amherst.
Okay.
Sampling water quality different bodies around here.
Sure.
And I did that for 16 years.
Okay.
And we were, no surprise, all our water is acidic.
Yeah. Okay.
I just wondering if that had anything to do with it and how it would affect, cooping up acidic
So
water
when
in
you
one
when you
spot.
say acidic, what are you talking about? 6, 5?
Oh, no, 3.5, 3.8.
in the pond.
In the pond, so low
okay.
that
Yeah.
fish could not reproduce.
Mm.
And I'm wondering, whatever happened to that study? Because that was, all you were hearing was, it was acid rain coming
Right,
from
right.
the Midwest blowing, in central part of the country, blowing onto us. All of a sudden, no one seems concerned about water quality in terms of pH.
Mm. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't seen
Okay.
this study
Just-
yet. Yeah, but to that point, it is important for us to understand what it is in the groundwater, more so than the pond, at least for us, right?
There's a USGS monitoring well, right, that we found at Clark Shores, kind of in the study. And there's one in the Assalamset near the dam, right? We have one there. I think they're like regularly.
It's across
Tracked.
from the town office building,
Right,
out on
right.
the little pumping station right
Yeah,
there is
yeah,
where
that's
it
what
was
it was, right.
installed.
Yeah.
So there's two
yeah.
different water studies going on, and Clark Shores Association is doing another one,
Yeah.
so,
We discovered.
and hope they're sharing information, so. Any other questions?
So recognizing it's just a pilot study, it's more of just a curiosity. And so is this system, is it gonna intercept all the groundwater? Or it's just intercepting a certain percentage of the groundwater?
Just a
and
part. So like if we put it here, like we're at this point, we're assuming, right, from professional judgment or, just layman's terms, water's going that way, right?
Right.
So let's just keep with that. If we put a 200-foot, let's say between these two spots, that PRB wall will really just intercept what's passing through. We're not having, there are things called gates and that kind of stuff where you can put in impermeable walls, right? To capture more water to direct it through your permeable barrier. That's not the intent of what we're doing here.
Yeah, so any improvement in water quality is a good thing.
Any improvement, right. So, and again, it's taking, that small, hopefully making it bigger to capture, more water, right?
Yeah, so that's just more of a general curiosity question, but the other question I had was kind of to what Joe was saying in terms of like, any control or reference, I guess that's what in part you're doing is what is the water quality now, not necessarily identifying sources or anything like that.
Right.
And then the follow-up would be, and it may be beyond the scope, the long-term scope, but other measures to reduce nitrogen and everything else moving, so it would go hand in hand presumably. Anyhow, sorry, it's not really a
Yeah,
question, but
there's
a reference point, some
Yeah.
type of,
yeah.
if
there's
pH
a-
is 3.5, it's pretty low. What's the
Right.
nitrogen? There'll be, sorry.
No, it's fine. And to that point, like, so I do a lot of work in assessment remediation, oil hazardous materials as well, right? So, we always look at remediation side of it, sure, but we always think about the source, right? How do you reduce the source so you're not remediating for ever, right? So I think at some point in time, right,
Yeah.
we'll be sort of going down that road and identifying sources and then ways of minimizing those sources.
And that kind of relates to the duration of the effectiveness is kind of what, if it's 10 years, hopefully in 10 years, there'll be some other stuff happening, but I'm sorry.
And, yeah. And also this, it addresses legacy nitrogen in the groundwater, so not, this is like nitrogen that's built up over time and it's coming from a much larger area than right there, so it, you know, even, it's not just about the current practices anyway, so like we did a Long Pond, like lawn care, educational workshop last year to help people understand about putting down this, you know, fertilizer and like lawn care practices. And it's like, we could do that kind of thing and it could help, you know, minimize additional nitrogen. But what's lovely about the PRB is capturing all that legacy nitrogen that's built up in the groundwater over time. So it's like, it is, yeah, it's not more effective than these other, but you know, hand in hand, you're getting a lot there. I mean, because we can't take the nitrogen that's already in the groundwater out other than by something like this, yeah. But I mean, Serped, like, yeah, we love this stuff, you know, in terms of like, we'd love to do more workshops about water quality and lawn care practices, and people are touchy about the septic issue, you know, so it's not like the first place to go. But it's
We got it in there anyway.
What?
To get that septic part in there.
Yeah, it's like once you build the relationship with the community and they trust you and they don't think we're coming in to like, you know, show they're out of compliance or something, which is not what we're doing, but just there around like education, and then there's more room to talk about those things. But yeah.
But so many of those systems have been upgraded around the pond over the years.
Right.
That,
Yeah.
Yeah.
just even, you know, we're dealing with old leaching fields now at this point, and people aren't dumping nitrogen into their gardens the way that they used to.
Right,
So
right.
we're already this much farther down the road than
Yeah.
we used to be. So this is a natural next step that should go hand in hand very nicely. So I think it's exciting.
Okay, so we're gonna close the hearing. And issue a negative determination, I'm assuming. Do we wanna put some kind of a condition, like, this is just me, like, we'd like to see the research?
Keeping us in
We'd
the
like
loop.
a copy of the
Yeah, of course.
research.
You mean their study that their feasibility, what they produce?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely, of course.
Yeah, I would love to go check out some of the work too, or,
The wells?
Yeah. Yeah, we did get requests from some Clark Shores people. They're like, "Oh, can we come and see when you do the borings?"
Yeah.
And
It was interesting, like one of the fathers was like,
Yeah.
can I bring my son? I want him to see, you know? It's like, that's
Yeah.
great. Yeah. So,
Well, some of it may involve some kind of siltation, right?
sorry?
siltation.
Siltation.
What is
putting down
siltation?
siltation barriers when
Yeah,
you're
when you're
actually bringing
drilling.
in.
Oh, yeah.
Some of that
Sorry,
might,
sorry.
and
Yes.
typically we get notified
Yep.
And-
if you have to
Yeah.
use siltation.
We have it in our scope, you
Yeah.
know, if
I
we
read
start
it.
to see anything, you know, we'll silt up and
And you're
go.
pretty far back from the pond, right?
And you- and you
There's
use
nothing
a
closer than 50
small
feet, I
diameter
don't
drill.
think.
Yeah,
No,
we shouldn't have an issue,
This is
but better to be
Oh, I'm not
cautious.
talking about the
one with
borings,
the
I'm
50
talking
foot
about the
and
wells.
Oh, okay.
Drilling the wells.
Yeah.
All right.
Even the wells are fairly clean.
They're
Like,
about
they-
100 feet back.
They
Exactly.
use, so for the well installation, it's not like this auger thing that screws in and pulls it out. It's a coring mechanism, right? 5 foot length, 3-inch diameter. They have these acetate sleeves. They drive it in, they pull it out, and there's a hole open, and all your dirt is in a acetate sleeve.
Mine
It's a pretty clean method, yeah.
All right,
I have a
so
question.
let's change it. So we're gonna close the
Wait a
hearing.
minute, we have a question.
Oh, I'm
Also,
sorry.
you finishing on that?
Pardon?
Refinishing on that?
Yeah, you have a question?
Oh, yeah, what about the residents' wells? Was there any sampling done from those wells, what the water quality is like in their wells? If that's groundwater too.
We didn't, you know, what we need is something a little bit more precise. Like that's taking in from, most of the wells are probably fairly deep.
Yeah.
And they're capturing whatever their zone of infiltration is. We want to get a little bit more precise with where we're collecting the data, especially the depth of where we're collecting that data, and not as, if you want to call it dissolved, right? Potentially, if they're pulling in who knows what else, right? In addition to impacted water, they can be deep enough that they're below it, maybe,
Okay.
right?
Right, yeah.
So it may give us like a composite sample, but it's not necessarily at a point where we can design around it. Yeah.
Okay.
So no, we haven't collected it, and the other side of it is, it's usually hard to get people to accept that we're gonna go there and collect their.
They don't want to find out there's something wrong with it. What you don't know, it won't hurt
Yeah, so, yeah.
Stay out of residences as much as possible, you know, this is all along the road, like, it's like, just keep it
Right.
simple in that way.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay, so I need a motion to close the hearing and issue a -3 determination, with two conditions. One, if you need to do any kind of siltation around the wells or anything, you need to notify our agent that you're doing that. And number two, we would like to see the data. Okay?
Process of notifying the agent, what's
He'll give
best?
you a card.
Okay, so it's a call?
Yeah.
Okay.
So moved.
Second.
All right, let me write it down. Give me a minute.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, while she writes, anytime we put down any, siltation barriers of any kind, we want to have them inspected before the work starts, just to make sure everything's in place and okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay, got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Personally, I'm elated.
Feel free to read through these, I give you a lot of handouts, there's a lot of good stuff in there.
So
Excellent.
drilling is scheduled for Monday, Tuesday, Friday.
The
Next.
14th.
Oh, next week?
Yeah, next week,
Yeah.
yeah. So Monday, Tuesday, we do the 11th.
So what's today? All right, so you might want to pick up your, you might want to call the office on that number. If you put the 8823 on there, on your card.
I put my cell phone, the office is on there.
Oh, right, my question. Yes, okay.
508-946.
8823, yeah.
yeah.
If you call that number, tell her you want to pick up your determination. Because if it goes in the mail, you won't have it when you start.
Okay,
Okay?
okay.
So I might need to, well, okay, we'll talk about that.
Okay.
When would you pick up the determination?
Well, actually, she could probably mail you, she could email you a copy. But you need to contact her because if she just drops that in the mail, you're not going to have it in
So
time.
the point is, we need to have it when we go on site. Okay.
Even if it's email, so you,
Yep, yep.
okay?
Yeah, as long as
Yeah.
we have a copy of
Yeah.
it. Okay,
All right.
okay, good.
Okay. The patient, Mr. Jamie Bissonette, 12 Southwark Street. Okay, I gotta read it, right? All righty. Motion to open the hearing?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. According to the provisions of Mass General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40 of the Wetlands Protection Act, there will be a hearing on the abbreviated notice of resource area development? That's not right. That's all right. Determination, an ANRAD, by the estate of Leonard H. Chase Jr. to confirm the location of a wetland resource area. The location of the project is 12 Southwark Street, Lakeville, map 25, block 3, lot 7. The public hearing will be held on Tuesday, April 8th at 6:30 p.m. at the Lakeville Police Station, 323 Bedford Street, Lakeville. Delineation, not development. You're up.
All right, good evening, Jamie Bissonette, Zenith Consulting Engineers. This is an ANRAD for 12 Southworth Street in Lakeville. This was
Okay,
the,
excuse me, please, if you need to talk, would you please go out because I can't hear. Okay, all right.
No
Talk
problem.
up a little bit.
So this is for an ANRAD filing for 12 Southworth Street in Lakeville. This is the old Chase House.
Jamie, would you mind turning it a little bit? We have, the whole back row is here about, like,
Yeah, we have a plan of it.
yeah,
Okay, I can turn it. This is okay?
yeah.
Yes.
All right. So what we're looking to do tonight is lock in the wetland line that runs behind the existing house, blueberry bush area and barn. building.
Okay,
We do believe that further to the east, there are uplands. We're not looking to lock in that portion of the site at this time.
Big
We're just-
chunk over here.
Yeah, there's a large piece to the back. We do believe that there's upland area back there. What we're looking to do just now is determine and lock in the location of that BVW line, as shown. I do know that Mark had a question regarding the report. We did do a wetland delineation across the street at 9
that was
Southport.
me,
Okay,
actually.
well, they're owned by the same we did the delineation at the same time and survey at the same time.
My prop was right in the ORAD. I wanna make sure when we write the ORAD that we're not including that over there. Was the
100%.
wording on it to me was a little bit confusing.
So this is just for 12.
So when we say what we're gonna, this is all we're gonna approve, is
That's
that
it.
wetland line on 12.
Correct, and we
Okay.
even have noted on the plan that that's the limit of the extent of the wetlands delineated
Okay.
on this site.
You don't have a DEP number yet, do you?
We do, we
Oh,
got
you
one
do?
yesterday.
Yep, it just came,
Oh.
it's here somewhere. All right, SE 192, 936.
Oh, it's just because Sebastian was talking about their original delineation, which was on both 9 and 12.
It's, I just wanna be careful when we write the ORAD,
Yep.
what we're approving is what we're approving.
Yep.
Jamie, how big's the piece of land in the front? The upland?
I want to say that it's somewhere around 5 acres, John. The overall piece is a little over 12
Over
acres.
12, yeah.
Yeah, and I believe it's somewhere around 4 to 5 acres of upland in the front.
And, I know I looked at who did the delineation, it's where
Yeah, it was
Bob Gray
Sebastian.
used to be, right?
It was Bob Gray's company. It's now Corey Bracken who owns Sebastian. I believe the first trip out was with Bob. I think the second trip out was just Corey. But it was Bob and Corey on the first trip, I believe.
Oh, so the Sebastian letter deals with both,
It does.
Yeah, they went out
so we're only dealing with
almost 3 years
Correct.
ago.
the
Yeah, so
wooded
they-
swamp.
Yeah, so their letter of finding was for both.
Okay.
So when was the delineation?
Well, it was done in two parts. The majority of the delineation was done. I'm still
Probably.
I have a copy of it right there.
That's why.
That's because when they did the original walkthrough in June of 2022, that the previous agent did the walkthrough with them. They looked at both and they did the original delineation on both pieces of property.
And then they did a updated site assessment on November 7th, 2025?
That's correct.
That needs to be
November
corrected.
7th, 2025?
Oh, 2024, you're right, yes. So
We'll go
did-
ahead and just assume that that was 2024,
Yeah.
probably.
I did call them and ask them to go back out to the site. There were some flags missing and we were given the go-ahead at that time to start the NRAD filing.
So they would reflag that initial area.
So we asked them to go out and reflag it. We sent the surveyors out to locate it.
Anybody on the board have anything before I go to the abutters? Okay, anybody out there that wants to ask any questions is welcome to come up to the microphone, identify yourself, and
Go away.
through us, Jamie will answer all your
Sure,
questions.
certainly.
I guess I will.
Please.
Okay, Nadine Burgesson. I live at 8 Southworth. Can you explain to me just where,
You're right here, okay.
okay,
Bottom.
so what are you planning on doing?
Well, right now, we're just locking in the wetland line. So I don't think there's a definitive plan as to what they're going to do. My understanding is I think they're gonna be selling the property.
All we're here for tonight is to agree that that's where the wetland is. They are not proposing any projects yet. All they want to know to do any kind of a project, they wouldn't even think about doing it until they just delineate where that wetland is. So all we're doing here tonight is agreeing to this wetland line. And then if they want to do something else, if they're within 100 feet of this, they will come back to us. If they're not in 100 feet of this, they won't come back to us.
Correct. Yep. So yeah, Nancy's 100% correct. We're just looking to make sure the commission agrees with the limit of this wetland line here at this time. We're not proposing any work tonight. If anything is proposed within 100 feet of this line, any earth disturbing activity, we have to file with the commission and they would make a determination. If it's under a notice of intent, you would receive another notification.
But if they wanted to put housing
Sure.
in there, how is it going to affect our wells, our septic, all
That's
that?
not an issue we deal with at this time. It's not an issue we would deal with at this time, because there's no,
Yeah, because they're not
That's a
saying
classic
what
what
they
if.
want to do.
Yeah. Well, that, we got the letter, we came to find out
Sure.
Yep.
what's what.
But defining the wetland is the first step in figuring out what they can do with it.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
This is the first step of maybe one, maybe many. But I expect if we do any more, we'll be in front of the commission again.
Or anything more than a house, you need to go to a planner?
planning board maybe?
Even if you do another house, it would require at least an approval not required plan.
Yeah,
Yep, on this side. They do own land across the street.
and the butters would be notified for that, right?
Approval not required, no,
Not an A&R, right?
no. So,
It's always, if you're very interested in all this, it's always a good idea to keep your eye on the town website because it will show on the town calendar if there's a planning board, and then you'll see agenda and you hit that and it will tell you what's on the agenda.
yeah,
Okay, and same thing with conservation. If it's not a notice of intent, you won't get noticed. If it's just a request for determination, say they want to do something and it's like 98 feet or 75 feet from the wetland and they only have to do like a smaller kind of a filing, it will still be on conservation, on the website, on the calendar. You hit agenda and it will come up. So it would be wise to keep an eye on that because it doesn't always come to you. Sometimes you have to look for it.
and both of those filings will be in the newspaper as well.
Yes.
So essentially, all we're doing today is telling them what kind of backyard they have and where it goes from just backyard to wetland.
And how much land they have to work with.
So how many acres is that back there?
Well, I didn't calculate the total area back here, but I do know the total lot's about 12.2 and we're between 4 and 5 acres, I believe, up front.
So about 8 acres.
So about 8 acres, I would say in the
backland.
back. I do know, so what we're saying is that at least this area and here's wet. We do believe there's some upland in the back, but we're not looking to delineate it or do anything.
And
At this
if,
time.
if that were the case, it would require a wetland crossing, which they would be back to us for.
Correct.
Yeah, they can't do anything near that wetland without coming back to us.
Well, like they did over on 105. They made a bridge.
But
Yeah, but-
that has to be permitted.
Yeah,
If they did anything like that, it has to come to us and it's heavily permitted if they're crossing a wetland. And they can only do so much without having to be overseen by DEP. We can only allow them to fill so much to make a wetland crossing up to 5,000 square feet. After that, DEP would be in charge, so it would be another layer of watching and permitting.
Well, they put a whole bunch of houses in there,
I don't know what you mean on 105.
I don't either.
right next to the dollar store.
That was a
that's-
40B.
that was originally a 40B.
Yeah, which is, that bypasses your local zoning for that kind of housing.
I don't know anything about that.
And you, for that to happen, you need water and sewer.
What's
And
that?
it's certainly not gonna be on South Fourth Street. You don't have town water and town sewer there.
Thank
So
God.
it would be,
Thank God.
you know, I mean, they could do on site, but still, it's a little more difficult
You
without
don't
that.
really see that,
But
all that
that's
much.
right. Yeah. Okay? All right.
Did this
Oh,
gentleman want to?
Yep,
Hello,
next.
I'm Michael Gailey. I live at 6 Southwood Street on the other side of Nadine.
Where? Show me.
6, one more
Oh, it's
down,
not off the map.
off the map.
Okay.
I'm barely in a butter by one corner of the property that comes down there. I have two questions. First question is, I see the line of delineation for the wetlands is the front of the, in the back of their yard, that's where the wetlands is.
Yep.
And the extent of the investigation is offset from that by however many feet. They didn't look any further than that, but I keep hearing talk about upland. I don't know the difference between all these terms, but that sounds like not lowland, which would be wet. So wetlands and upland sounds
Yes.
like a very intentional delineation we're making, and that's where I think the concerns from the neighbors are, is that, we see lots of development, and if they're talking about it being dry, when I look at the USGS map, it doesn't delineate anything different, it just shows it green and wetland, so just want to make sure, I think that's where the concern comes, is if they're classifying the front of this, did they really check the whole site for,
Wetland lines are
Wetlands.
usually pretty easy to, between plants and,
Soil.
soils. Yeah, and this was a real reputable company, actually, as far as I'm concerned, that did this wetland delineation.
Plus our agent prior to Mark was
That
involved.
walked the line,
Yeah.
right. It's,
So, but this only determines the wetland line here. So if there is upland in the back,
right?
it's potentially developable.
Can you describe what upland means?
So
Just, it's high and dry.
Okay, so that is buildable land, which is different from what it shows on the
I mean,
USGS
there'd be a
map.
lot of things you'd have to do to access it. One of the things is a wetland crossing, which is a big thing. It's a very, like we said, it's very, involved with permitting and stuff like that. And,
it's also expensive.
yeah, and wetland replication and,
And this
So-
only delineates the front edge of that wetland.
Right.
There is no back edge here. So there could be an upland spot in the northeast corner, but that could, be 5 feet from the edge of the rear edge of this wetland.
Okay.
So you could have not a worry about, somebody creating a wetland crossing to get to that high dry spot, because that high dry spot is really useless from a development standpoint.
Okay.
None of that had come into play in the previous assessment or what they're asking for today. We can't, make any assumptions about what they want to do, because all they said was, we want to put a firm line that this is the front edge delineation of this wetland here. That's all that they're asking us to do.
Is there a
without reading the
larger map
Ts.
that shows what the wetland does in its circle? Like the USGS map has green that says this is the wetland, and that has a shape that completes itself. We only have one side of it.
I can answer that if you'd like. So the USGS is an estimated map. It's based off of a very large scale drawing with estimates based on geology and what they've found doing some studies, but it's
And aerial flyovers.
it's a national
Yeah.
mapping, and it's an older mapping. We find that it's a great guidance tool to get started, but we have found several discrepancies, and you constantly will. The wetland scientist, if whoever owns this in the future wants to take a look at the back, like they said, there may be uplands, there may not. What we're trying to achieve tonight is just to make sure that the commission and no one else is misled. This is the only part that we're looking at right now. It's not trying to say that we believe we can put houses back here or that we can't. We're not, we haven't even looked at it.
Okay.
So I have not walked back there. I haven't had any of my staff walk back there, except for survey. We did survey around, but I didn't ask them to look for whether it was upland or wetland. It was just for the survey part of it. But to be very clear, this is all we're looking to lock in.
I know wetland line is a very squidgy kind of
Right,
thing.
it
That's a very
moves
technical word.
It is.
But, if whether you're in a dry season or, a wet season.
Right, I mean, that was I saw that typo for 2025 as well, because the original one was in June, It's traditionally pretty dry time of the year, and testing wetlands in June, I know, you're gonna get a better perk, and an unbuildable lot will be maybe buildable on a nice, dry, droughty.
But your
June or
vegetation's
July.
really not gonna change that much in
And
the
the soil,
weather,
the
right?
soil
Yeah.
type doesn't
Yeah.
change.
Yeah, like,
True.
if you take an auger and you go down into the ground, what, if it's,
I'm not a scientist, I don't know all these
Yeah.
things, I'm just a concerned neighbor, I wanna make sure all our concerns are met. I see that there's like 10 points in the upper left-hand corner that say there's no rare species, endangered species habitat, any of that stuff, but, we see a lot of wildlife. I looked at the list of all of the Massachusetts endangered wildlife, and there's a lot of turtles and toads and salamanders.
so, where's
12
your,
acres
is
of
there, did
space
you
back
check
there.
natural heritage? I didn't even look.
It's not, it doesn't,
It's not
it's
in
not part of
natural
the, no, it's not part of the NRED. Yeah, we did check natural heritage, based on the mapping, and it's not located within any GSP priority or estimated habitat.
Okay,
And nor would it be part of the NRED filing, it'd be part of the notice of the RDA, because no work's proposed.
yeah, there's another whole set of,
Totally get it, I just wanna understand as much as I can understand, read the
Okay.
report, and wanna make sure.
anybody else?
Thank you.
Oh, Mark,
I was gonna, another resource beyond the USGS maps, but it's similar caveats, but a mass mapper.
Yes.
Um,
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and there's wetland chain. Anyhow, if you go in, you can play around. And as Jamie is saying, that it gives you an estimate, a general idea, but you still have to actually ground truth it. And there's things like soils, which is where an auger would come in. There's soils that are characteristic or tell you that these soils have been wet, or they're wet and they're hydrate soils. So that's in plants, but the soils actually are the probably your best. It's just a starting point.
The map that Mark is mentioning, Mass Mapper, is a fantastic tool. It's actually, in my opinion, it has the USGS on it, but it's better. But I have one of the engineers from my office at a meeting tonight where Mass Mapper shows no wetland and there's an intermittent stream 20 feet from a house with a BVW.
yeah.
And so, again, it's a good guidance tool, but it definitely needs a wetland scientist.
You can't
with
beat
feet
boots on the ground.
You can't. And so, I mean, it's so obvious when you're on site, and so every one of them, that's why you guys do what you do.
Okay, thank you, appreciate your time.
Sure.
Anybody else? No? We're all good? Okay. Then motion to close the hearing and, issue an ORAD.
So moved.
Second.
No discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Mark, when would I pick that up? Next week?
Yep,
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll be in touch.
I'm-
Thank you.
I'm in on Tuesdays, Thursdays, but Lori's there.
Great. All right, thank you. Thank you, appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Jamie.
Maybe after next Tuesday, because we will probably have to write it together.
That's fine.
Okay, so,
wanna
and we
just
get
let me know?
together on our off Tuesdays is the day we get together.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's not a
okay.
huge rush. Just let me know when it's ready.
Okay.
Are we doing anything with the next two?
Once
Over
it's
his
done,
two,
I'll-
right?
I'll send you an
You
email.
asked to continue the next two, right, Jamie?
Oh, yes, yes,
Mona.
yes.
Oh,
Why, because Will's not available?
Correct, yeah. Will's
There I
my lucky
went.
charm.
welcome.
No, what, so,
So to the
just as an
22nd?
update, and I think I put it in the email, the Lakeside Ave one, they're looking for a more cost-effective way to handle the foundation. And then, Mona, we're, just handling a couple of loose ends. I think we'll be in for the next meeting on Mona.
Yep.
Lakeside, I asked for a couple of meetings out because I still think they're a little ways away, and I don't
So a
want to waste
month?
your time.
A month?
I think we actually did 3 meetings out,
Oh, okay. all
So
right.
May 27th
yeah.
for Mona, or for
Lakeside.
Lakeside,
For Lakeside's further out, Mona's the end of this month.
April 22nd.
Please, yes.
Okay.
And, okay, so for Mona,
What
and
was
what
the
was
other date?
74?
May 27th for Lakeside.
5/27. All right, so first I need a motion for
I make a motion to,
Three Mona.
continue 3 Mona Street, to the 4/22/25, meeting here at 6:30 PM.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, now I make a motion, should I make a motion?
Yeah.
Okay. To continue 74 Lakeside Ave to 5/27/25 at 6:30 here at the police station.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye,
Thank you. Have a good night.
thanks,
Hi,
Jamie.
Jamie.
My final, I have all those.
All right, so here, that should go back to Mark.
Okay. Because there's multiple layers, so many people involved with that.
Cards.
Oh. Next. 160 Bedford Street has requested a continuance to 4/22, April 22nd. So I look for a motion to continue 160 Bedford Street, in order for them to answer the peer reviewer's report, to April 22nd
So moved,
at 6:30 at the police station.
so moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, so now 160 Bedford Street's on here twice because their notice of intent, we really can't talk about without them being present, but seeing as I went there Monday and gave them an enforcement order, and I believe there's pictures, did Lori give you
We have
the?
pictures of the piles.
We've got pictures of the piles, which when I called about the piles and said, you have large piles, and they're like, oh, that's not very large. I'm like, it was higher than the dumpster. So, and I'm sure it's probably, they're talking about it's not an 18-wheeler, it's probably just a dump truck. But if you look, especially at that one picture, the one that has the dumpster in the background, it's right on the edge of the wetland. And so when I called back and told him, gave him, you know, the enforcement order, you can't move them, you can't take them out of there, you can't spread them out, you can't do anything. They had said that they used it to fill in the holes from the
Borings?
borings, but they're not, when our consultant went out, there's no holes. They must have put the dirt that they took out of the borings back in the ground, so there's no holes to fill in.
Big holes.
He doesn't have a notice of intent yet.
No,
He has no.
Yeah, he's got a
he's not
notice of
supposed to-
intent, he doesn't have an order of conditions.
doesn't have an order of conditions,
Oh.
right.
So they shouldn't be doing anything at
No.
this point. Right.
No, so I got the word from the foreman, it's in the mail, I talked to the consultant and, I said, do you think I should go down with enforcement from DEP? And she said, they're only gonna ask the same questions I just asked in my review. So if they're to move it or do anything, we need to get help with enforcement from DEP. But for now,
Can we
So-
at least notify DEP? I mean, even if they don't come down, just to let them know this is going on.
I have a contact that I've been talking to at DEP about 160 Bedford Street all the way along, so I'll send her a
I
copy.
think
of
I
the
think we should get it
enforcement
on, especially
On
with
record.
the,
Well,
with the
this
rainy
goes-
weather.
This
and
goes
now-
to DEP. The enforcement order, copy of the
I
enforcement
know,
order
but
goes
call
to
your
DEP.
contact and let them know that this is going
This
on.
guy
with them.
really doesn't listen. So. I imagine we're gonna end up sending it to DEP, but we should be ready to.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I don't think my contact is the same enforcement. It's really funny because the sheet from DEP doesn't have enforcement. It has emergency response, but I think it's a different person, so I've been handling this, you know, yeah. Mark and I are trading off, and I'm doing the old complicated stuff, and he's taking on the new complicated stuff. So,
Okay,
yeah. Oh, so I need a motion to ratify, I signed the enforcement order.
so moved.
Second.
That was a motion to ratify. the
Okay,
enforcement- Come on now.
Motion to ratify the enforcement order for 160 Bedford Street and rear Bedford Street.
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Do we have a clean signature sheet? Or we just want to pull one of the ones?
I
has
don't-
your signature on it.
One person can sign. Did she put another one in there? I don't
It
think
was
it.
just.
It's
As long as
copy
you
of you.
ratify the
Lori-
vote.
Lori usually includes an extra controller, so.
Yeah, but if it's not specifically made out for there, I don't think, we're ratifying. It
Okay.
says specifically one
Yeah.
person can sign it.
I was
I
just
just
checking.
need some backup.
And
Okay. Yep.
no, no
Good with me.
address.
This not here.
What do you mean, no address?
Well, it's,
On the enforcement?
it's only on this. It's nowhere on this, right? Now, this is their file number, the 925.
Yeah,
Okay, make sure.
okay. All right, where are we? Old business? Old business? Route 79. Okay, so I got a call from an abutter about Route 79 and about McCoy Brook coming from the other side of 79, its inception and going through, and they were worried about, because McCoy Brook is one of our last surviving cold water trout streams. That, they wanted to make sure it was protected, so they were gonna come and explain it to us at the meeting tonight, but instead, they sent this, they sent me this letter from Beta. And it sounds like they're gonna protect it pretty good. They are saying exactly what they're putting in.
Well, they sent us a whole PDF on it.
Right,
But they're also saying that they don't have any proof that.
Any proof
that
that
this
it's
is
Pocoy Brook.
Pocoy Brook.
well,
Yeah.
and they're using the excuse because it went through the cranberry bog. Like I say, what's the option?
And they use the word intermittent in there too.
This is a,
So would it be seasonal, like a vernal pool?
say again?
Would it be seasonal, like a vernal pool, that connecting to Porkboy Brook depends on, the springtime, the winter, and then it dries out in the summertime, but it is still,
Oh, no,
Max's.
Pocoy Brook's doesn't dry up, does it?
no, but it's this
Well, but
feeder
that
to
far
it.
away from, you talked about Route 44 where
Yeah.
it's coming all the way down through the cranberry bog. By the time it gets to Route 79 and crosses over it.
You're-
It's
What-
watered down some, yeah.
What they're claiming is that a resident's complaining or concerned about something that they can't prove is Pocoy Brook, is the first part.
And I did forward this to the resident,
Okay.
said,
Aside
mean,
from that, it
between-
looks like the mitigation's gonna be fine.
Yeah, between the mitigation and yes, the natural mitigation of cranberry bogs.
So what do you require on this, Nancy?
nothing, FYI.
Okay.
They were supposed to come and explain it to us, so they just explained it to us without
Okay.
coming. It looks like they had another place to be tonight. So I don't think we need
I think
any fuss
contacting
vote,
the
because we've
resident.
already issued,
The
we've already issued
order
their
of
order of
conditions.
conditions, so
Did the resident get a copy of this letter
Yeah.
back? Okay,
immediately,
then I think we're,
yep.
Do we have a start time for them? Isn't it in 26 sometime?
after frost, March, April-ish, it was to be determined by the state's contractor.
But not 25, 26.
It's 26, yeah, it's spring, early spring of 26. But the state was very specific that they did not determine the schedule, because that was one of the things that we had asked about, was the end of the schedule. That the contractor sets the schedule very heavily weather dependent.
Okay, meeting minutes,
Right,
Joe?
Joe, you're up.
Make a motion that we accept the minutes of the Town of Lakeville's Conservation Commission for January 14th, 2025 as presented to us.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, Mark, you're up.
Okay, so a couple updates. I went out to 5 Harding Street and met, with, Irv, and I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank on Irv's last name, but he's, and one of the first things that jumped out was the siltation and the fencing needs to be replaced, and Irv said that, yeah, that was the first thing Irv said to me is, we're gonna replace this. They had all the material on site. He's gonna call me back, once it's back up, and he said by the 15th, it should all be up.
Are they working the property in the meantime?
They haven't really started. There is some grading. I don't know the history of it. I don't know if it was from previous, but they're starting to stage. There's equipment out there.
Is it like windwear, just from like the storms we've had?
Yeah.
It look like?
Yeah.
But it's all within the
Indeed.
limit of work, right?
Right.
Because the siltation is defining the limit of work.
Yeah.
So
And-
nothing's outside of the limit of work.
No.
Okay.
No. And, there's a silt sock that goes along with it as well. If anybody is available, I'll let people know when he gives me a call. So that was one thing, I did, or one update. So we got, to follow up on, issue that came up last meeting was 17 Shore Avenue, where, there was a patio that was put in. And I know, John, you went out, and then, I went back out, so, the builder came in and filed an RDA today, so we'll see
So,
that.
just so you know, he had, when I went out there, he had, the sock all around the whole perimeter of the property. They built a concrete block wall in the back, but it was on top of a concrete retaining wall that had been there forever. There was nothing in, beyond that wall.
And he was
No.
also putting in a septic system?
He put that in the front, and he pulled a, NOI for that.
An NOI for that.
Yeah, that's the only thing he pulled the
Yeah.
NOI for. So I told him in the future, if you're gonna do work on the site this close to the water, put everything in the NOI,
We've been saying that for years.
But he put a field stone walkway in the back, but it was on top of an existing concrete, walkway that had been there forever. So there was no damage done.
So
And
he's
he put-
dressing up the place.
It looks great, and he put sod down, so there's no problem with, leaching through he did a nice job.
So it's just after the fact,
Yeah.
to get them.
And I told him,
Yeah.
going forward, dude, this close to the water, you have to at least come to conservation, we can give you direction, so.
It was a similar message. We won't get complaints. And it's ironic that another one, Marigold Lane, is it Lane? Anyhow, that was discussed last meeting. Also, there was siltation. He was involved with that, but there wasn't a permit. He hadn't applied for anything, but the first thing you saw was this really nice siltation, and
Was that Louis too?
yeah. Yeah, so, again, my message was, we won't get these complaints, give us a call, and we can make sure that you're in compliance with everything you need to be complying with, so.
Right.
And I went back down to one Marigold Lane, I believe there was, the commission, you recommended some additional sedimentation. That's in place as well, so, been, a few of those type activities, a few just trying to, assist, residents with various things they want to do, in terms of, for example, taking down a tree adjacent to a house, trying to, help them file the appropriate, application, so. I guess, those are the main type of things I've been working on.
Got a question for the chair, Steve, that
Yeah, I have one last thing too. What?
the
Yep.
falling of the tree, was that resolved?
We're working on it.
Still working on that one.
Yeah,
That's different than the usual tree things we
Right.
see.
Right.
So
we've spoken to DEP about it. I mean, it's not really,
yeah, and it depends. If they're just gonna,
Well, they want to fall this giant tree in the swamp and just leave it there, right?
that's gonna
Right.
be a notice of intent because natural heritage will have to be. If
Yeah.
he can get it taken down without dropping it straight in the swamp. If he wants to drop it and leave it in the swamp forever, and number one, I think there's too many branches. He's gonna take other trees down with it and leave it there. It has to be a notice of intent because natural heritage needs to determine if that we need to get a write-off from them that he's not killing any
so, and I spoke to.
endangered species.
I-
Cause I think it could hit the pond. I think he
It's a
keeps
big
saying it
tree.
won't hit the pond, but it's the house, there's a wetland and the long pond.
Long pond.
Well, and we spoke today, and again, I went over a couple other options. And then it looks like there may be some upland that if you start looking at the lot, that he could probably drop that tree onto upland and cut it up, but that's not my
He needs to
decision.
talk to some people who do it.
I suggested that. He said he had an arborist coming out to do some other work. I said, well, I can't tell you about the type of crane you might need, or if you can find somebody that can climb it and top it and drop it, or,
Some are so close that we had a tree taken down at our Wareham house, and the crane did a lot of the work, but there was part of one, the humans gotta go up and nibble it down.
It's hard for a crane to even get in
Yeah,
there, I think.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
really-
no, it would be a big crane,
It's
because,
it's probably one of the biggest pine trees I've
And that's-
seen in a while.
and that's another issue. If you're gonna leave it drop it into the wetlands, you're still gonna have to presumably get some equipment to get it back out. So you have the same type of problem, and you're gonna wind up doing a lot of damage just trying to take it out. So that wouldn't be the ideal option.
And the fact that it's a huge pine and it's ancient, and I'm sure the black ants have got to it and
I
have
don't
no
know.
idea where it's gonna fall.
It looks pretty healthy.
They do until they aren't.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Well, I have a lot of empathy for the situation,
me
so
too.
I've been trying to,
Help him, guide him through it.
yeah.
Anyway, I have one last thing. Are you done, Mark? Is that it?
That's
Okay.
it. Unless
Um,
anybody has any questions, other questions?
For the next agenda, and John and I were talking about this, about making a policy, and I'd like to put it on the next agenda and write up a bare bones for us to look at. But I really think, I'm so tired of walking up to a hay bale line and kicking with my foot and all the straw falls out. I would like to make it a policy that we require the nice
Silt sock.
silt sock.
As opposed to,
A hay bale line, a 12-inch hay bale, 12-inch
Or
hay
wattle.
wattle, straw wattle.
Yeah, straw
Make sure
wattles.
that's in our order of conditions instead of
Yeah.
one or the other. Say that again?
Make sure that goes in our order of conditions instead of that is the specific area
But
that
I
we
think we
use.
should vote as a committee. I'm gonna put it on the agenda to discuss.
Okay.
All right, and, cause it's not on the agenda tonight, but I'm just saying, I'd like to put it on the agenda for our next meeting and we'll have a real discussion and take a vote. How's that?
Sounds good.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Madam
Okay.
Chair,
Yeah, those straw wattles are nothing.
we have two warm bodies over here.
Hi.
I just want to make sure these people are showing up.
You gotta, I get in trouble if people don't come speak at the microphone.
Tim Nguyen, 1 Wednesday. Just want to make sure Meryl's showing up to review this.
She's working for us. So when,
But I thought we were supposed to go over this tonight.
well, the enforcement, can't remember when I talked to you, but
The
the
last
enforcement order came in between, I did the enforcement order yesterday, so it's a whole new thing, so, and they haven't responded. I sent you her peer review.
Yeah.
She needs to respond, so, when they have their response ready, she's still on board for another review of their response in a meeting. I don't wanna waste her time at a meeting until I'm sure that everybody's coming
Yeah,
to do the
and then One of my
discussion.
other questions was that I've never gotten an answer for is, you know where the wetlands are around my driveway? If you come up my driveway?
Yep.
Where the wetlands
Yeah,
kick in
I do,
usually?
so does John.
So that drops way, way down. On the other side of that, that used to be just a hair higher.
All right, but I have to stop you because we can't talk about 160 Bedford Street
Oh,
because we
right.
continued it and it's not,
I
I'm not saying it's against the law, but we're not supposed to talk about it when they're not here.
My question is, when can we talk about it?
Okay, I'm gonna have to let you know, because if they have an answer, you see, there's a lot of things in there they have to respond to. Mark and I talked about him calling and say, we would like to see your response by next Tuesday so that the commission has a chance to look at it before the meeting. All right, so that's a week before the
Find out,
meeting.
because it was a lot of old construction material that was dumped. You saw the piles that were dumped? Well, they brought a bunch of construction material in the beginning and dumped them there. So,
On your property?
no,
Oh.
on their property, but right next to the wetlands. That's how they built it up, like the 10 feet.
All right, well,
So,
when we
I
can
just-
talk
I
about
just wanna
it, we
address-
will.
I want to address it.
Right.
Because it has not been addressed in the past 8 months or whatever. And
It's only been, what, 2 weeks since we got off of the old enforcement order and the old cease work order, whatever it was, cease and desist, and got out, it's only been that one meeting that we got the NOI, and then we went and got the peer reviewer, who seems to be very good.
But are they reviewing that particular issue?
We'll have to,
Or should we ask him to submit it in writing, his concern? And
oh,
maybe,
that wouldn't be bad.
That'd actually
You
be
wanna
the
see-
best,
can
yeah.
you do
the
that?
best
yeah,
thing.
because the pictures clearly show it. Do you know what I mean? And I know we went back for the.
Technically, we can only review the NOI that's in front of us
Yeah,
Right,
so. it'd
and
be-
the amendment to
So
that.
how do I
and the
add
peer
to
review.
that?
So if, well, it won't be part of the NOI,
But as an
but
abutter,
as an abutter, if you have a concern and you send it to us in writing, we have, somehow
bring it
we'll
up.
have to.
at the.
Well, I was gonna
Whether
bring
we
it up, I
have-
was gonna bring it up at the meeting when this person was here.
if you submit it in writing, we can,
Yeah, whether we have the peer review, take a look at it while they're there. I mean, it'd be great if you could.
If you
talk
submit
about
it in writing, maybe we could forward it to her to get
Right,
it answered
and
before
have
the
her-
meeting,
and
so
put it-
you're not hitting her cold.
Well,
Put it on the agenda too.
Yeah, I just wanna, do you know what I mean?
So be as
Because
specific as you can. If you have pictures, send
I
them.
used to walk around with the dog all the time. It
Yeah.
used to sink.
All right, so I think you need to do that, because we're really not supposed to be talking about it
All right,
without
all
them
right.
here. Because that will give them another, oh, you talked about it when we weren't
No,
here.
no, no, I don't wanna do that. I just
Okay, all right.
wanna have it addressed because
So-
it just seems like every time I come home, there's a new pile of dirt or something else is being moved.
So if you do it in writing and do it to Lori at the office, L Kennedy, I'm sure you
Yeah,
have
yeah,
hers,
yeah.
because hers is included in
Yeah.
stuff that's come to you.
Just send it to her
To
in
her,
writing?
yep,
Okay,
all right,
I will do that.
okay,
Great.
And then, thank you for your time.
you're welcome.
I'll see you on the 22nd.
have a good night.
Good night.
So now is the planning, oh, you don't know anything about that. The planning board, are they still waiting on you now, or is this?
We sent them all of this, I sent them
Completely.
all of this information.
completely
with
separate.
this- With the cease and desist,
Not
yeah, but
when
I've
we're
been
not on
driving
cable.
down and then I get here and they're like, it's continued.
They'll be aware of what
You can come
we're,
up to the microphone, now we're getting complicated here, all right? Okay,
That's my fault.
that's all right, it usually is, no.
All right, bye.
You only know half of it. You only know half of it.
Okay,
Better get us up.
motion to adjourn, please,
Motion
save
to
me.
adjourn.
Okay.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.